men and women, and I've checked his record.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to react?
Not me.
I'll leave it stand?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
As fine as it is.
Let's go to this is the op-ed page of the Washington Post. Let's start up here in the corner. We'll quickly go through it and get your reaction. Meg Greenfield, what's her politics? Anybody jump in?
Well, I would say she was a sort of orthodox liberal.
You agree with that, Wlady?
I'd say she's kind of almost neoconservative, but afraid to admit it.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Here's Jean Kirkpatrick. Quickly.
Hysterical reactionary.
No, a stalwart neoconservative and patriot.
Robert Evans and Roland Evans and Robert Novak.
Comical reactionary.
The best political reporting.
Clown reactionary.
The best political reporting in the country.
We got one more up here in the right-hand corner. William Raspberry.
Mushhead.
Mushhead? Why do you say that?
Because
just
he's
look
not
at
for Jesse Jackson uncritically. He's a moderate. He's sound.
Okay, and how would you describe that op-ed page for Monday then? Is the caller right?
The op-ed page on Monday is a sort of salad of conventional wisdom.
That's the old canard. I mean, the op-ed piece is not the rest of the paper. This is a section where opinions are expressed, but this has nothing to do with the opinions expressed in alleged news reporting. And that's
alleged news. You're saying that the news reporting is biased?
Well, yeah, the story can be frequently slanted. I mean, for instance, the non-stop stories on Edwin Meese and his supposed corruption. I mean, it just never ends. There's nothing new in these stories, but it keeps going on and on.
San Antonio, you're next.
Yes, I would like to ask Mr. Placzynski. First of all, he seems to have a negative slant towards Jesse Jackson, and I would just like to know where he gets his information as far as where Mr. Jackson stands with the Communist Party or with Fidel Castro. Why he has such a negative slant to that. It seems to me that this is a good opportunity for the United States to open up to other parts of the world, and I'd just like to see what his.
Okay, well, there's probably no country more open to other parts of the world than the United States. We have freedom to travel, and anyone can go anywhere he pleases. But again, the point about Jesse Jackson, well, you were there, and you're back here. The point about Jesse Jackson is he traveled to Cuba not to improve relations with Castro, but simply because he admires Castro and the political style Castro represents.
And you've said that three times. I'm not going to let it go the third time. Jesse Jackson went down there to try and broker a prisoner exchange with Castro, which was partially successful and has paved the way for the American Interest Section in Havana to do a general deal on human rights and Cuban prisoners in U.S. jails. Jackson has nothing to apologize for on that trip. And a lot of people are better off directly that he made it.
Let me show the audience what Newsweek suggests would be a shadow cabinet for Jesse Jackson. And we can go through it quickly, and I'll take a call and come back and ask your reaction. Here's Burt Lance, Drew Days III, a former Assistant Attorney General, Felix Rohatyn, a financier from New York City, Jimmy Carter, former president. Down here is a group of Tony Anaya, former governor of New Mexico, Pat Schroeder, William Gray, and the Speaker of the House, Jim Wright. Let's take a call, and we'll come back and ask you about this. San Jose, California, you're next.
Good morning. I was wondering why is it not better well known that General Secord was the ranking officer that designed, Desert One in 1980. You remember the rescue in the desert with the helicopters. And number two, particularly Mr. Hitchens maybe would know about this. Do you think that talk of Iran Gate and Desert One kind of makes the small group that votes Republican in primaries circle the wagons and unite with, Bush? But in the general election, it would alienate most of the electorate. And secondarily, if you have time, would you find Senator Gore and Governor Dukakis both acceptable? I have a feeling that Gore might be a stronger candidate, and equally as good a president. See if you can handle those.
Okay, well, on the Secord and Desert One, I mean, it's good that you recollect the very early connection between the Reagan team and the affair in Iran. What I hope will happen when Mr. McFarlane comes to trial is that he is asked what he was doing when he met with two other envoys of then-Governor Reagan in October 1980. and the envoys of the Ayatollah Khomeini, and that he's asked what they discussed, and that he's asked why it was that arms started going from Washington to Tehran very shortly after the president was inaugurated, when there were no hostages in Tehran, and no hostages in Beirut, and no moderates in Tehran either. In short, what we want cleared up is whether or not the deal with Iran was made when Carter was still president, and it was a deal to keep the American hostages in Tehran in exchange for arms from Reagan, if as a consequence of that Carter was defeated. So, yes, good point. I've written 4 columns about that. The apparent liberal and left-dominated media haven't seen fit yet to ask any of these questions, but they will get asked because everything I just said is factually true.
Well, as our media becomes more and more conspiratorial, they will probably come around to these questions.
Well, it's not. If it's a conspiracy, which is the word you use to try and negate it, it must be the conspiracy, surely, of those who met secretly with the envoys of the Ayatollah. What do you think they were talking about in October 1980? Why didn't they report their meeting to the State Department? And why do you think they started? And why do you think they started selling arms as soon as Reagan was elected in 1981? Why is that? Don't you think there's the prima facie case for an under-the-table deal with Iran?
I've seen no evidence to back up what you're saying. And secondly,
you don't
whatever
know,
context,
you don't know those
whatever context the Reagan administration had with Iran had to do with larger geopolitical
realities.
Administration context. Meaning the future of Iran, a large strategically critical neighbor of the Soviet Union. If that area falls into Soviet control, it's a major defeat to the West and its interests.
Now, you just said that Jesse Jackson had no right to meet as a private citizen with Fidel Castro. I don't think that's true, but if you think that that's a distinction, then the fact is that McFarlane, Silberman, and Richard Allen met as envoys of the Reagan election campaign in 1980 with the Ayatollah.
I mean, we got a call to take, and I want to make sure our audience knows who our special guests are this morning. Our guest here on the left is on your right, but on our left here is the managing editor of the American Spectator, Wladyslaw Placzynski, who has been with the magazine since 1980, has also written for the National Review and the Wall Street Journal, has a BA in History, University of California at Santa Barbara, did graduate work in Soviet area studies at Indiana University, and is originally from Santa Barbara, California. Christopher Hitchens, a columnist with The Nation, has been with The Nation since 1978, here in Washington since 81. Previously was the foreign editor of the New Statesman, a publication published in Britain. His background includes a graduate in philosophy, politics, and economics at Oxford University, is originally from Portsmouth, Hampshire, England. Calls himself a Navy brat. Buffalo, New York. Go ahead, please.
Hello, I'm responding to these 2 ladies who were very irate because they felt they had been intimidated in the Caucasus in favor of Michael Dukakis. That's not the fault of him. That's the fault of the caucus system itself. Because in watching it over C-SPAN, what you have to do is to get 15% of the vote in that particular caucus, or else your candidate doesn't have any recognition at all. And what happens is the rest of the candidates go around and try to persuade those people to go on their side. Perhaps in that particular caucus, the Dukakis candidate was very persuasive, and this person, having been totally committed to Gore or whoever it was very incensed, as I would be. And I think that something ought to be done about the caucus system so that it would not antagonize somebody against a person like Michael Dukakis. I'm for Michael Dukakis. I know he doesn't come across very strong. I mean, he seems to be less impassioned than other people, but give me a person who's got ice water in his veins rather than someone who can stand up and make an impassioned speech. And in the long run, what they're going to do is they're going to trot out the families of people, and whoever has a nice son or a nice daughter is going to get a few more votes. So in the long run, I like John Dukakis, and if all fails, I think that Kitty Dukakis' father is a national treasure. All they have to do is trot him out, and he's going to get lots and lots of votes.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to react?
Well, I don't think the callers should be that upset with the caucus system. I mean, politics is politics, and there's a lot of hardball, so-called, being played. If you want to look at Dukakis and find something to alienate you, just look at Jim Sasso or Susan Estrich. I mean, these are very contentious, to put it mildly.
Jim, you mean John Sasso?
John Sasso, I'm sorry, yes. Who was ousted as his campaign director after he did in Biden.
And how would you describe those 2 people?
Well, as extremely hardball, extremely tough and ruthless.
Chris,
political operatives.
Any reaction? Thousand Oaks, California. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Hitchens there. I don't know where the gentleman